Hey everyone, welcome to another recording of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Your team this week is a little on the lean side. It's just me and John Richardson from Only Guns and Money blog and Charlie Cook from Writing Shotgun with Charlie, Charlie's Gungrams, and about a half a thousand other things. We'll be getting going here in just a second as soon as I get social media hooked up. And I want to remind everybody as I do that, if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube on the Polite Society podcast channels, you can get your comments in. We'll get them on the screen and we will talk about your comments on the air. And everything does appear to be up and running. And let's see here. Go over here. Looks like somebody was kind enough to write up the intro already. All right, guys, are we ready?
Ready.
All right. In that case, we're going to have Masada Ayub in 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Masada Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this one on Monday, July the 17th, 2023. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm John Richardson, and on tonight's show we will talk about the horrible new Oregon gun law being upheld on absurd reasoning.
I'm Charlie Cook, and we will remind you why you never take a knife or a chainsaw to a gunfight. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 669 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. All right, it's Monday night. It's just after 7 p.m. in the Central Time Zone. And so that means it's another episode of the Polite Society podcast. Usually I start with Rob. He's not available this week. So, John, I'm going to jump down to you. What's been up with you since the last time we've been on the air, man?
Yeah, not really too much to report. You know, summertime and the living's easy here in the mountainous south. Unlike most areas, we've had temperatures mostly in the 80s. It's warm without being oppressively hot. We are getting some of that smoke from Canada, but that's about it. I've been sitting on the porch doing quite a bit of reading, a lot of gun books. Did have a nice chat this weekend with Gary Doherty, who used to be part of Polite Society podcast. He is now an elected legislator, county legislator in Illinois. He's doing good. Charlie?
I have finished up a crazy trip that's taken me from New Jersey to Southern Virginia, back to Massachusetts, and then out to Colorado. I filmed 7 shows while I was gone. I went sporting clays down to Virginia and did sporting clays with John Petrolino, the Penn Patriot, and with Cam Edwards. And I ended my trip in Colorado. Got to see make some new friends, of course, which is always good. But I interviewed Laura Carno and some of the people that are associated with Faster, Colorado. And I ended my trip to Colorado at Michael Bain's secret hiding bunker, and I got to shoot one of his rifles on his property, and I'm sworn to secrecy where he lives. So I've had a crazy busy week and a half that's been a lot of fun. Paul, what's been happening with you?
Oh, man, we are heating up preparation for AMCON and GRPC. And also, I'm as we shut down tonight, I'm going to be packing up the small studio and getting it ready to go to Detroit, where Charlie's not going to be this year. Just for me, more of the same. Doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff and getting things ready to go for Phoenix this year and to go to Detroit. Kind of that, and I still have not gotten my one gun a month caught up yet. So I do plan on. I hope to have purchased a new firearm for the Lathrop household before the end of July. Stay tuned. We'll see. We'll see if that happens.
I hear great things about the was it the Yeet Cannon 9?
Yeah. And then the only thing great I hear about that is it costs about a half a Glock and performs about as well as a half a Glock. All right, and really not a lot else going on. So let's go ahead and do this. This may be a very short show tonight. Usually we get these in 90 minutes. It takes for us to get a show in. We might get this one in under 60. We'll see. But we're going to jump to our first break. We've got coming up our new segment, and we've got a lot to talk about with Oregon and a lot of other places. So we're going to hear from ACLDN. We'll be right back right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Givens, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tueller, and led by network president Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
And welcome back to the news segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Our first story, as we promised, a federal judge on Friday found Oregon's new gun law, which bans large capacity magazines and requires residents to obtain a permit to purchase firearms, does not violate the Second Amendment. After a week-long trial, U.S. District Court Judge Karen Immergut, in a 122-page order, found that the law keeps up with the nation's history and tradition of regulating uniquely dangerous features of weapons and firearms to protect public safety. The law, Measure 114, bans the sale, transfer, and import of gun magazines with more than 10 rounds for residents that are not members of the military or law enforcement. The measure, however, will not require current gun owners with high-capacity magazines to turn over their firearms, but does bar them from removing the weapons from their home for anything other than practicing at a firing range, in shooting competitions, or for hunting, according to the Associated Press. And we all know how much they know about firearms. Guns with high-capacity magazines are not commonly used for self-defense, are therefore not protected by the Second Amendment, Immergut wrote in her ruling. The Second Amendment also allows governments to ensure that only law-abiding, responsible citizens keep and bear arms. We're getting there, trust me. The lawsuit filed in November by the Oregon Firearms Association argued that gun control law violated the Constitution. In response to the Friday hearing, the group said it wasn't entirely unexpected. What we've read defies belief. While not entirely unexpected, Immergut's ruling is simple and is simple nonsense, and sure to be overturned by the Ninth Circuit, the group wrote in a statement posted to their website. When faced with clear and undeniable issues about all magazines being banned and the permit system being completely unworkable, she essentially said, "Not my problem." We will be sure there will be plenty of parsing of this absurd decision in the coming days, but it was clear from the very first day that Immergut was both painfully ignorant and in the pocket of Oregon's far-left Department of Justice, the organization added. And also, there's already been an appeal filed today for both SAF and Firearms Policy Coalition have already appealed this ruling. John, you're up in show notes, man. What do you think?
I had better hopes for, I had hopes for a better opinion out of a judge actually appointed by President Trump. However, most noted, she had pretty much telegraphed how she was going to rule earlier in the oral hearing. And one other comment, if I remember correctly, at the time of the Bruin ruling, there were a number of cases that were reversed, remanded, and sent back to lower courts for decisions consistent with Bruin, including one case that dealt with high-capacity magazines. So this would seem to fly directly in the face of that.
Well, and wasn't that sent to wasn't the high capacity magazine? We're both doing the Charlie Cook thing here. High capacity magazine. Wasn't that sent down to the St. Benitez down in the San Diego area?
Yes, it was the Ninth Circuit.
Okay.
It was originally sent to the Ninth Circuit. Yeah.
And then they kicked it down to him. Okay.
The thing that gets me about this is they're talking about the where's the sentence here? The law-abiding, responsible citizens to make sure that the Second Amendment allows governments to ensure law-abiding, responsible citizens keep and bear arms. But we don't want to trust you with that much freedom. We want you to have a gun, or we don't want you to have a gun. We'll let you have a gun, but we won't let you have magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. But it's probably okay to carry 2 10-round magazines or 3 10-round magazines, but one 15-round magazine is absolutely unacceptable. And that is completely absurd. Completely ridiculous. And of course here it also says that the police and the military have carve-outs where these laws don't pertain to them, which is that's not right.
Yeah, let me get to some comments here. Where are we at here? Let me go to Warsaw Patriot to start with. There we go. Oregon's assault weapon ban is going to get reappealed. Yeah, it's going to go to the Ninth Circuit, and we'll see what happens from there. And he also adds, Delaware's assault weapon ban just got appealed to the Supreme Court. Let's see here, and yeah, there are, and I'm going to turn this into a little bit of a pitch for SAF here. There are a ton of lawsuits going on. SAF is involved in dozens of suits throughout the country right now, just in the federal level. If you are not a member of the SAF, you are not helping get these lawsuits along. Please, please, please go to saf.org/join. If you are a member, kick in another $50. If you're not a member, join. It's $150 for a lifetime membership. And these lawsuits are not cheap. Even if the attorneys don't charge anything, they have to charge for what their staff does. They have to get copies made. There's a lot of administrative fees. The courts don't do their work for free. So if you're not a member, please do join. Oh, let me get this one in from Mark Hookham. Good to see you checking in, Mark. My gun rights are not to protect me from the thug down the street. They're to protect me from a tyrannical government.
This is true. I say that people need high cap magazines because bad guys have friends, but certainly the government has a lot more friends than the bad guys do.
Well, the bad guys are. Charlie did when the magazine ban went through in Massachusetts. Were the thugs there waiting to turn in their 17-round Glock mags?
Yeah, no, they were not. Shocking. Shocking,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. But the
And
president said we need an F-15 or an F-16 to take on the government.
This is the terminology is really getting out of hand. One of the things in the bill that they have in Massachusetts that's going on right now is not assault weapon; it's assault style weapon, and the things they included in that are a Kel-Tec Sub 2000 and a high point carbine rifle. So it seems to me that they're willing to say that anything is an assault style weapon. It's ridiculous. I mean, it really is ridiculous. F-15 or not.
Would the lightsaber that has a light that has the blade coming out the top and the bottom, would that be an assault style lightsaber?
That would be a high capacity lightsaber for sure. But it could also identify as a flashlight. So, I don't know.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to our next story. A Second Amendment advocacy group has filed a lawsuit against the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives over the agency's zero-tolerance policy to shut down gun stores. Gun Owners of America filed a suit against the ATF on Tuesday of last week over the agency's rigid inspection guidelines for federal firearms licensees, FFLs, from January 2022 that makes it easier to revoke a gun store's federal license. A couple quotes from Eric Pratt. This zero-tolerance policy towards lawful commerce guaranteed by the Second Amendment is just the latest example of this administration weaponizing federal agencies against their political enemies. He also said, it's also just one more compelling piece of evidence to support gun owners' demands that Congress defund the ATF. John, you're typing away in show notes. What you got, man?
You know what really gets me on this? Not that we're suing ATF, but in both this case and in the Cargill case, who has a similar lawsuit against ATF. And Mr. Morehouse had an earlier lawsuit against ATF. Both of them got intense audits while they were still plaintiffs. And ATF would say, oh, our inspectors had no knowledge that such a case was going on. I'm raising the BS flag on that. They knew very well that there was a case going on. And then there's the case out of Oklahoma where you had a home dealer, high school history teacher, Baptist preacher, clean as the driven snow, works with ATF, gets a call, says, we need to inspect you. Is this a good time? Yeah, come on over. I'll make time for you. So they sent a SWAT team. And they call off the SWAT team when he said, okay, I'll give up my FFL. That's all they wanted to do, to force him under the threat of, at the point of a gun, to give up his FFL. They talk about a rogue agency. They need to be reined in big time.
Yeah. Charlie, man, what do you think on this?
So going with the rogue agency, we hear all these Democrats think that we have a rogue Supreme Court, and they're just trying to interpret what the laws are, and they're saying, "Hey, listen, this is how we need to interpret these. We're not some rogue Supreme Court here." Anyway, so again, piggybacking on what John just said, if the ATF didn't know that there was a case going on with Michael Cargill in his shop, then how is it these agencies are working together? Does one hand not know what the other one is doing? So yeah, I'm going to call BS on the ATF. And by the way, we never hear about the A and the T stories. We only hear about the F.
WTF. I want zero tolerance for ATF. I want, if they make one mistake, the agency goes away. They expect all FFLs to be absolutely perfect. We're humans, so I expect the ATF to be absolutely perfect. You screw up, your entire agency is out of a job. Let me get comments up here. Mark Hookham says, I've never purchased a gun where at least 2 people went through the 4473. Where else is this done? Yeah, in South Dakota, I'm blessed. I have an enhanced South Dakota enhanced carry permit, which means I can pop my permit down. I do still have to fill out the 4473, but they don't even start filing it, doing their thing with it until after I leave. My carry permit is good enough for me to cash and carry the firearm. But even then, they still go through that thing and make sure it's properly filled out. So, but man, we're all human.
So you had to go through a back. This is kind of where I see things here. You had to go through a background check to get your carry permit. In Massachusetts, you get your permit from your town. They say it's the local police do a background check. They send everything to the state. The state does a background check. The state makes the license, sends it to the local police. Local police call you. You go down and pick it up. You have to go through 2 background checks to get a gun license. How many more background checks do you have to go through? How many? If you commit a crime, if you get a DUI, if you commit a crime, they're going to arrest you. When they arrest you, you know what they're going to do? They're going to look in your documents. They're going to look at your record. They're going to find out that you've got a gun license. They're going to take your gun license. They're going to take your firearms from you. So one of the things I've been saying since I've been teaching classes is my license to carry is my good guy card. It shows you that I'm not a criminal. It shows you that I pass background checks. It shows you that I've never been arrested. I've never been to an institute for mental illness. It tells you I'm not a felony, don't have felony convictions as a juvenile or an adult, and that I live a pretty quiet, boring life. How many more background checks do I have to go through to make these people happy and satisfy their ridiculousness? So I think what you have in South Dakota sounds great. You've already passed a background check, haven't committed a crime. Here you go.
Yeah.
Fill out the 473, so they have that for their file, and then sell you the gun and go home with it.
Yep, and
that's the way it works in North Carolina.
A lot of states like that. And Mark came back with a comment. I need to move. Mark, you know where I live, man. Just telling you. Mark's actually been to my house. So, come on down, man. Land of Freedom. We'd love to have you. Mark lives up near the Twin Cities, unfortunately. Let's see, what else have we got in here? And let's get this one in. CNT Designs and Arms says, for my last project with SDA, I got denied, and then it went to pending and stayed there. I waited almost a month before I finally picked up the receiver. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but my understanding was, again, I don't deal with this anymore because of my enhanced permit, but my understanding was if you got delayed, the FFL could give you, after 5 business days, they can turn the product over to you.
I think it's 3 business days, but yeah, if the government doesn't do their duty to get the background check done, then the gun store can you can go pick the gun store up after 3 business days.
Yeah, so I remember because when I very first got into this, there was no South Dakota enhanced permit, and so you had to go through the whole thing. And it was when I was delayed at the FFL, they said come back in a week, and that was 5 business days. So Maybe they were just holding it for an extra couple. I don't know. But let's go ahead and move on to our next one. This is a Tom Knighton story off of Bearing Arms. North Carolina media shocked ghost gun rules don't stop criminals. I'm going to very briefly paraphrase this one. The phrase ghost gun is pretty popular with the media as a way to describe unserialized firearms. It sounds scary, like they're just beneath the surface with no way to be monitored or traced, which makes them all the more terrifying. Basically what happened was, I'm going to pull up the article here. I believe it was 11 Alive in North Carolina did a big piece. 11 Eyewitness News 11 out of North Carolina did a big piece where they were still able to buy barrels. They were still able to buy triggers. They were still able to buy a whole lot of things for parts for guns, and they weren't serialized.
It's out of Durham. I don't have to say too much more than that.
Okay.
I mean, the only people I ever knew that serialized every little part were, I want to say, the Germans or anybody who made Mausers. They serialized the bolt. They serialized the receiver. They serialized the band around the barrel. They serialized the barrel. I mean, everything had a serial number, which for collectors made it really cool. You said it's an all-matching gun. But after that, who cares? And pre-68 in the U.S., it didn't have to be serialized.
No, and I own a few that have no serial numbers on them because they're pre-1968. And oh, by the way, I remember, wasn't it New York's that didn't carve out an exemption, New York's law that didn't carve out an exemption for firearms that were manufactured pre-68? And so
I'm not sure.
I think that was Jersey, and that they included BB guns in the unserialized firearms because in New Jersey they consider a BB gun a firearm.
Okay. I want to get this one in from C&T. Coop says, those spooky ghost guns. Mine are all broken. They can't pass through walls, and they haven't shot anyone. Darn lazy guns. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's go to, again, we're moving right along. Federal appeals court to take up Florida gun law. A full federal appeals court said this past Friday, it will take up a legal battle over a 2018 Florida law that bars the sales of rifles and other long guns to people under 21. The 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals vacated a March decision by a 3-judge panel that upheld the constitutionality of the law. The Atlanta-based court said the case will be reheard en banc, meaning by the full court. The one-paragraph order did not explain the court's reasons, but the NRA, which challenged the constitutionality of the law, sought a rehearing by the full court. The legislature and then Governor Rick Scott approved the law after a February 2018 mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland. Nicholas Cruz, who was 19 at the time, used an AR-15 to kill 17 students and staff members and injure 17 others at the school. Federal law already prohibited the sale of handguns to people under 21. Good on the NRA for staying active and getting this appeal forward. SAF has been doing this. We've got, I believe, in the Fifth Circuit, we've already won that one in the Fifth. And I know that I think it's the Fourth or the Fifth, Fourth or the Indiana Eighth Circuit that we have lawsuits up. So, again, I said this past week.
I was going to say there's one in Virginia that somebody won stating that if you were between 18 and 21, you could buy a handgun.
Oh, nice.
Really, I thought that was a federal thing. I thought it was, and I was a little shocked by it because I thought 21, under 21, it was federally forbidden to buy one.
It
but
is.
If someone transferred one to you, then it's okay.
That is correct. They challenged the federal law and won.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah, I in a post Bruin area, this will go away. 18 to 21-year-olds will be able to buy any firearm they so choose as long as they've got a clean record. This will go away. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, and the one thing about the law to begin with, it shows how politicians, it didn't matter whether they're Democrat or Republican, they do have knee-jerk reactions to tragedies. Would that have stopped the killer at Parkland? Probably not. I mean, there were too many things already in the background they should have gotten him on, and they just glossed over it. So what's one more thing? Raising the age to 21.
You know what would have stopped the murderer in Parkland?
Yeah.
A resource officer with a spine.
Yep.
Well, I spoke with Mike Piwowarski on this, and we did see video of the guy stopping, retreating, and then heading the other way. What Mike explained to me is where this guy was at, the camera was not facing where the gunfire was. The gunfire was behind the camera. So when it looked like this guy was running away, he was actually running to the gunfire. It's just that he was 4 buildings away. So
kind of like David Hogg.
That should be plenty of cover, right?
Yeah. Now I will say this: Uvalde, Texas, would have stopped if there were police down there with spines. That would have stopped a lot faster.
Oh my God! Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How about that cop? How about that cop that had the Punisher on his phone? Right.
CNT Coop says, "You know what would have stopped Parkland sooner? An armed teacher. Imagine that."
Oh.
All right. And let's. We're going to really briefly hit this next story. Over 96% of firearms-related death of children and teens are intentional. And I'm just going to flat synopsize this. A study came out. Over 96% of firearms-related deaths of children and teens are intentional. There's a big thing about the biggest killer of children in the United States is gun violence. That's only true if several things happen. Number one, you cannot include anybody under the age of 2. Number 2, you have to include children to go up to the age of 20 years, 364 days. And number 3, and what they're trying to say is almost in this story, almost all of the major killers of children, that the number one killer of children really is automobile accidents. Those are almost all unintentional, whereas almost all firearms death are intentional. And 96.5%, according to this story. So it just further lays waste to the claim that that firearms are the number one killer of children. Well, you've got to really, really finagle the numbers, and you've got to ignore a lot of things.
Expanding the definition of children, I don't know how long people have been doing it, but I remember in the Obama years, they were saying that you were a child if you were up to, I think it was 25 or 26 years old, you could still be on your parents' health insurance.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and yeah, and that seems to be a little ridiculous and excessive. I got to say, I was in my I was 26 years old with a teaching job in a public school, single, unmarried, no kids, all that sort of stuff. I had no idea that I had health insurance. I wasn't going to the doctor. I know I was paying for it, but I wasn't going to the doctor. I didn't even know I had health insurance. But at 26, I was an adult. I lived in a couple different places, a couple different states that weren't my home state by the time I was 26, and paying rent and had bills in my own name and had a car and all that sort of stuff. And I certainly wasn't a kid,
Mm-hmm.
Well, in a lot of ways, I was a kid until I hit my 30s. I didn't really grow up until I was in my 30s. Now, I was doing adult things. I had a family. I was, just like Charlie said, I was providing income for the family. I was doing a lot of good things, but still a lot of stupid stuff. But what I'm trying to say is the prefrontal cortex is what I think they're trying to place where you become an adult or not. That may not have formed for me until my 30s, but I was still able to do everything an adult can do from a much, much younger age. Let me get
right. Like if we have an age of consent, we have an age of consent. And whether it's 18 or 21, okay, let's just go with it. That's when you're an adult. That's when you can do adult things and make adult decisions. Let's not expand it. And even like in the gun law listening tours, there were a couple of people that wanted to say, oh, we've got these kids that are 24 years old. Yeah, kids aren't 24 years old. They're adults at 24. They might not be mature, they might not be behaving maturely, but they're classified as an adult.
I want to get a couple comments in here. First from C&T Designs and Arms. And by the way, when we talked about this story on the Weekend Bullet on Saturday, he has a great resource he goes to. I will try to bring it up later, but where he can parse it out to unintentional deaths. And he says unintentional deaths for children was about 168 in 2020. Unintentional firearm deaths were 168 in 2020 for ages 0 through 20. So, yeah,
it's
what we have
nothing.
What we have a problem with in the United States is not gun deaths. We have a gang death problem. We also have a family broken apart problem. A couple other, let me get here. Dana says auto accidents and suffocation are bigger killers. Let me get Warsaw Patriot says bullying, abuse in the family can lead to mental issues in a child's mindset. And he continues, even suicide. And then, let's one more from C&T. Yeah, but Democrats want 16-year-olds to vote. What's more dangerous, choosing the leader of our nation, or where you can quite literally harm and kill millions, or a assault weapon which teaches responsibility?
Come on, man.
All right. Last story, and this one I had to include just because Charlie's here tonight. Where Massachusetts police raise alarm on HD 4420, a travesty of a gun control bill. What I ought to do is right now I ought to do to Charlie what I did when we were on the Bullet one time, and I started reading off New York's where New York you wouldn't be able to carry with their new gun law. 7 minutes it was solo on Charlie while I was reading. I just would like to see you just pay attention to Charlie's face as we read these this Facebook post from the Ware Police Department. The Ware Police Department would like to bring an important matter to your attention. The proposed anti-gun bill currently under consideration, HD 4420, and Act Modernizing Firearms Laws. We understand this state-level legislation has raised concerns among law-abiding citizens who value their Second Amendment rights. We recognize the right to bear arms is a fundamental aspect of our nation's history and an essential component of personal and collective security. As members of the police force, we are committed to upholding the law and defending the rights of our community members. A plethora of blatantly unconstitutional proposals litter this travesty of a bill, too many to mention here. However, of particular egregiousness is the criminalization of carrying a firearm in certain so-called prohibited locations, including businesses and private properties, even while holding a valid license to carry. And I think this next part is what torques the cops off most. Not even off-duty police officers will be exempted from this appalling mandate. Gun-free zones have been proven to have no effect on stopping crime. In fact, they embolden criminals to seek out these areas as soft targets of opportunity where their chances of meeting resistance will be minimal. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I really suspect what's got the Ware Police Department all up in arms is the fact they don't get a carve-out unless they are on duty and in full uniform. I think that's the problem Ware police have with it. Charlie, your thoughts?
Woo, doggy. So earlier today, I started penning an article about the Ware Police Department post, and the Plymouth Police actually posted something as well. In the post that the Facebook post that the Plymouth Police did, they talk about how there was an armed citizen that stopped a kidnapping and a domestic violence incident, and there was a police officer at a restaurant that stopped a crime from being committed, off-duty police officer who was carrying his gun. And so the Plymouth Police brought this up on their post. I'm completely convinced that the reason that the police are these, there's two towns said this, 351 towns in Massachusetts, but only 2 towns have spoken up about this. And I think it's completely because it's going to go after the police while they're off duty. Otherwise, the police have been pretty quiet about, about not getting involved in things and not speaking up about legislation. But now it affects them, and now they want to say something.
So are either of these 2 towns near Boston?
Plymouth is on the South Shore. It's where the Rock is. The Rock is, if anyone's ever seen the picture of Plymouth Rock, it's very uneventful. And Ware is actually, I think, like 2 towns away from where I live. So it's wicked close to central Massachusetts.
All right. Any thoughts on this one, John?
No, I was just going to ask Charlie about. I'd pulled up a map of Ware. So it's about 15 miles away from you, Charlie.
Where is it, right? Where is Ware? There was a place called the Ware Gun Store that had been around for years, and I believe they ended up going out of business. But it was owned by Mike the gun guy, who used to write articles for the HuffPo. Yeah,
yeah, who's anti-gun as can be.
You got it. I had one of my friends, like early 2000s is when I got a gun license and started on my path that I'm on. One of my friends came over and I said, hey man, I was the first guy in my clique of buddies to get a gun license. And I said, hey dude, you should get your gun license. He went out to the Ware gun shop. The minimum requirement for a class is 4 hours. It took him longer to drive from east of Worcester to get to Ware than the class was. He said the guy went through the gun safety rules in about 20 minutes and let him go. I talked to two two other people. One lady actually grew up around guns. She was okay with guns. Her husband had a gun license. She went to the Wear Gun shop with a Groupon, and she wanted to get her gun license. And she said she came out of the class more afraid of guns than she went into the class. I actually thought about spending money on a Groupon to have my son take the class and see if I could sit through it to see what this guy's teaching. And they ended up going out of business. So yeah, the Wear Gun shop is the same town where that happened.
It sounds like it's a good thing he went out of business.
Absolutely. Mike the gun guy was an anti-gun wacko. He was for magazine restrictions and assault weapon bans and all the other nonsense that the Democrats push here in the Commonwealth.
Well, yeah, there was Bill Ruger was for magazine limits. I mean, God rest his soul, he's no longer with us, but there were a lot of people for a very long time that would not buy Ruger firearms because Bill Ruger was for magazine limits.
Wow, that seems a little crazy. Is it crazy? Is it me or is it crazy? Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. The more I get involved in all the gun stuff, the more I want to become a libertarian. And leave people be and let them go. One of the shows that I did this week was with my sister from a different Mr. Laura Carno, and she called herself a small L libertarian at one point. And I thought that was pretty cool because at one point I was like, I think I'm a small C conservative, but I'm leaning towards a small L libertarian.
A conservatarian.
There we go.
Actually, there's a book called that. That's why I brought it up.
Really? I actually thought about starting my own. I thought about starting my own political party and calling it the Preservative Party because I want to preserve the rights that we have.
Yeah.
Like let's keep what we got and let's focus on that and preserve the country we have.
Yeah.
Of course. I also said if I ever ran for office, my campaign slogan would be, "I'm putting my foot down and my finger up."
What is that finger going up, though? That's the question.
It's the tall one.
All right. Okay. CNT, I got to get this comment, and then we're going to go to break. CNT says, Charlie, no, you are the sane one? You never thought you would hear that. So.
I know, right? What kind of a world do we live in where I'm the sane person?
Let's go ahead and step aside to break. When we come back, we're going to get to our defensive gun use segment, and I think we're just going to go ahead and shut the show down from there as well. I still have a hope we can get in under an hour. So let's do this. Let's step aside to our final break. We're going to hear from the complete combatant, and we'll be right back right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
All right, welcome back. This is the defensive gun use segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. I want to get one more comment in from last segment. CNT Designs and Arms, speaking about Ware, Massachusetts. I would name my store the Werewolf Tactical Guns Shop.
Nice. Yeah, Michael J. Fox owns that, doesn't he?
Yeah,
There you go.
there's well, I'll save this comment for off the air. As we get started with our defensive gun uses, these discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The defensive gun use segment is intended as information, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations. I've been doing a whole lot of reading tonight. Charlie, you want to take this first one?
Absolutely. This comes to us from Stanford, Kentucky. As we have said, never take a knife to a gunfight. How about never taking a chainsaw to one either? A male homeowner woke to the sound of breaking glass. When he checked on the cause of the sound, he found a man with a chainsaw coming through a full glass door. The homeowner didn't remember hearing the chainsaw running, but rather thought it had just been used to break the glass. Luckily for the homeowner, he was pogoing. He was armed at the time of the encounter and fired 4 shots at the intruder. 3 of his shots found the target. According to the report, the 44-year-old intruder was suffering from a psychotic episode. The sheriff's office said that they think he was suffering from sort of mental illness issues. He thought he was hearing voices and thought somebody was screaming for help. Then he tried to gain access into the residence, according to Michael Mullins. At the home in the time of the break-in, besides the homeowner, were his wife and children. Mullins stated that there was no indication of alcohol or drugs at the time. Sorry, Rob. Don't have to check the toxicology report. The man was transported to the Fort Logan Hospital and then to the University of Kentucky Hospital. He was in serious but stable condition. He was cited and charged with first-degree burglary and 4 counts of wanton endangerment. That's what we got.
Wonton?
Wanton endangerment, sorry.
Wrap that one up. Yeah.
I know.
Sure.
Sorry.
I actually am glad about 2 things in this. Number one, that the homeowner was pogoing and could defend his family. The other actually is that the chainsaw guy did not get killed. Obviously, a person with severe mental illness who needed help. He was dangerous, but now this might be what's needed to get him into a mental hospital and committed. Paul?
It took 4 rounds, 3 of them connecting to stop one guy. Why do we need 10-round mag limits again? You've burned through almost half your capacity in a 4-round magazine. What if this dude had 2 friends? Now, again, this is a psychotic person, but in a home invasion, usually 2 to 3 people are invading the home. Took 4 rounds to take down one guy. It's going to take more than you got to take down 3. Get this one in from C&T here quick. He says, you come at me with a chainsaw, that's not going to be good for you. Pants on, gun on, baby. Yeah, and let's go to, John said it. The guy, and Charlie said it in the story. The guy was wearing inside the home. If you're listening to this, if you're watching this, do you carry when you're inside your home? I do. I would show it, but YouTube would pull us off. So, John, let's...
I was going to also say most of us don't wear chainsaw safety clothing, which would have stopped his chainsaw. I mean, I've got a set of the pants, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're not wearing it when you're sitting around reading books in the evening?
No.
It's not your casual house attire?
No.
All right, let's go to Berwick, Maine, John.
Okay. In May, a 41-year-old went to the Schoolhouse Street home of 25-year-old Christopher Utt. it was about 9 o'clock in the morning. The 41-year-old man, fired several shots from his gun into the air after he got out of his car. He then forced his way into Utt's home, and both men exchanged gunfire at the threshold of Utt's room. Obviously, it sounded like Utt retreated. Both were wounded in the exchange. Mr. Utt was taken to the Portsmouth Medical Center in New Hampshire, where he underwent surgery. At the same time, his attacker was taken to the Wentworth Douglas Hospital in Dover, New Hampshire, where he did not survive his injuries. The New Hampshire Medical Examiner's Office ruled the man's death a homicide, but after a review, the Maine Attorney General's office ruled Utt acted in self-defense and has not been charged in the man's death. Mr. Utt is still recovering from his injuries.
I can't really tell from the story, the way the story is written, if this guy was practicing pogo, if he was pants on, gun on or not. He could have grabbed a gun as he was retreating through his house. But
well, all right, so even if he was retreating to his house and he didn't have the gun on him, he had one that was close, easily accessible, and possibly loaded, maybe just had a magazine without a round in the chamber. But he had quick access to the gun, and some of these states, mine in particular, is proposing that you keep everything separate and apart and don't have quick, easy access to them.
That was the Heller decision. That Heller in DC, you had to have your firearm disassembled to have it in your house.
Yep.
And
yep.
In Heller, the Supreme Court ruled, look, inside your residence, you are allowed to be armed. They cannot tell you what you can and cannot do inside your residence.
This is kind of an unusual case in that you're dealing with medical examiner in one state, attorney general in an office in another. I looked at the map. Berwick literally is on the border of New Hampshire. The New Hampshire medical examiner was right. It was a homicide, but it was a justifiable homicide because it was self-defense.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and start shutting the show down, guys. John, I'm going to start with you. What's been going on over at No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money?
Well, there is a YouTuber, Liberty Doll. She put out a YouTube which analyzed the report from Bloomberg's Everytown. The major thing is they now have an interactive map that gives the home addresses of many FFLs. Everytown is claiming a gun dealer in your neighborhood is a source of crime guns and is dangerous. And the reality is that Everytown is doing just like the Southern Poverty Law Center with their hate group map, and they're putting targets on the backs of gun dealers. I also have a post looking at comparison of 30-06 versus 308 cartridges. The bottom line is they're both very similar and they're both good. I did get a lot of comments on that one though. That and more is at onlygunsandmoney.com. Charlie?
So, I've got a question. I have. I got a question on your article about the Liberty Doll thing here. Is it an invasion of privacy to publicly make an interactive map with private citizens? Like, that's got to be some sort of an invasion of privacy, right?
I would think it would be. In the past, there have been newspapers where carry permits were public records, and they posted it. I could look and see, Charlie Cook has a gun license, and then they put an interactive map. I'm wondering if what they're calling residences are actually home-based FFLs.
Kitchen table FFL.
Kitchen table FFL, which unfortunately I have to say, all you have to do is go to the ATF website and you can get an Excel spreadsheet, state by state, up to date, of every FFL other than Class 3 curios and relics.
Okay.
So theoretically, I could go get an FFL and I could deal in all kinds of things, including some stuff that I can't go down to my local gun shop and buy without a $200 tax stamp, right?
Yes,
I
you
think-
would have to be a special occupational dealer.
Tax. Right.
Yeah.
An SOT. I think for some of the FFLs, you have to have a have to have a business storefront.
It depends upon where you live and what the zoning laws are.
Okay.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Um,
Interesting.
So I gotta you also mentioned 30-06 and 308 cartridges. Let's just say that somebody you know has on his list of his bucket list of firearms that he wants to own, happens to have an AR-10, and he's open to either 30-06 or 308, but wants something in that power range. Which are you going to recommend for your friend, John?
I don't think you can get a 30-06 AR-10 and 30-06. I think you could only get a 308 because it's the shorter action.
All right.
However, you could get an M1A1. No, I take it back. M1A1s were all 308. You could get an M1 Garand if you wanted a semi-automatic 30-06.
Grands are they have the 5-shot clip, and they do have a clip, right?
8-shot, and then it goes ping.
Yep, 8-shot. Okay. All right, Charlie, man, what's coming out? What's going on?
What's going on? So I've had a busy week. I haven't done much social media-ing. I am going to have a show coming out next Tuesday. I'm not 100% sure who it's going to be or where it's going to be from. So please tune into that when it does come out. I'm going to be working on an article on the Ware and the Plymouth Police posts, and that is hopefully going to be up at news2a.com in the next couple days. And that's why I'm just trying to play catch up with sleep and get clean laundry. Paul, what has been happening with you?
Again, just working on AMCON, working on GRPC. For me, we are continuing to do Tuesday through Saturday editions of the Bullet. Same bat time, same bat channel as you catch us here today. So just tune back in the rest of the week. I want to mention real quick that there will be a show next Monday, but the following Monday after that, at the end of the month, there will not be a show. Let me get calendar pulled up here. On the 31st, we will be the 24th, 1 week from today, there will be a show. The 31st, there will not be a show. I'll be coming back from Detroit. And so I may make it home in time to fire up what's left of the studio in here, but I wouldn't have any time to do show prep, and absolutely zero time. So we're just not going to do a show that night. Although Charlie won't be going to Detroit, so he could maybe join me. So
I can do all the show prep, Paul. It'll be fine.
Real fast question, Charlie. You mentioned earlier that you filmed 7 riding shotguns.
7
in a week and a half, somewhere there.
In a week. Yeah, 8 days,
wow.
I guess. Yeah.
So does that mean we're going to be staying with every other week, or will Charlie maybe going back to weekly releases?
I would love to go back to weekly releases. I look back at 2021 when I put 7 months worth of material out in every week. 7 months I did a show every week. I think I tried to figure it out. I have 13 shows that I need to edit right now. I would love to be able to put out more just to get them out and get through the motion of stuff. If I can, I'm going to. I know that with the middle of next month coming up, I've got some, college trips I need to make. hoping to hit another state and do some other shows while I'm on this trip to take my daughter to college. So I need to have some stuff prepared for that as well. But man, I would love to get back to doing a show every week. I think that'd be really cool. Really made me feel like I was contributing. Yeah, so I'd like to get these, like, because the thing about having that many shows to edit is not just the time and all that. It's if I only put them out for, 2 a month, then I've got months with no stuff, no need for content, but I still have people that want to be on the show, and I still want to keep filming shows. So I'd like to try to maybe slip 3 out a month for a few months until I catch up. So yeah, we'll see.
And I suppose it would happen if a major gun manufacturer were to invest a lot of advertising.
If a little angel from somewhere came down and pranked her wand on my life, it would be a lot easier to get the shows edited and to get more shows going. And absolutely. So if anyone knows of anyone that wants to help get the Stagecoach across America, that would be awesome. Let me know.
All right. So that is going to wrap up another episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. So for Amy, Dana, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, Carrie Ann, and Rob.
Until the next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
All right, everybody, that is the end of the recording. We're going to go ahead and shut the stream down. I've got to make dinner tonight, and I've got to get to bed. I've got an early morning tomorrow. So really no post-show tonight. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, everybody, for commenting. And we will see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central Time, for another